Hi guys, welcome to T-Shoot Labs. This is Prateek. I hope you liked the last video wherein we discussed the packet flow through the ASA 8.2 and previous versions and 8.3 and the newer firmware versions. So today we are going to discuss NAT on ASA. So we'll begin with NAT Order of Operations on 8.2 and previous firmware versions on the ASA. So to begin with, there were basically four type of NAT that you could apply on the ASA: NAT exempt, static NAT, and static PAT, policy dynamic NAT, and regular dynamic NAT. So before we begin, what is NAT? NAT stands for Network Address Translation, and wherein a particular IP is translated into a different IPv4 address. You can either NAT an entire source subnet to a destination subnet. You can NAT an entire source subnet to a single IP address, or you can NAT a single IP to a single IP. You can also perform port address translation or PAT, wherein a source IP along with a source port is NATed to a different IP on a different port. So to start with, on ASA 8.2 and previous firmware versions, or the pre-8.3 firmware versions, the NAT order of operation used to be, first of all, the highest priority was given to NAT exempt. Then it was given to static NAT and static PAT for both regular and policy. Now when we say regular and policy based NAT, regular NAT is NAT wherein you directly define a subnet or an IP address and NAT it to an IP address or a subnet or a range of IP addresses. Whereas in policy NAT, you create an access list. Basically, you define a policy. For example, let's suppose if a machine from the subnet 192.168.1.0 is trying to reach someone on the internet, then it should be NATed to 1.1.1.1. This is policy dynamic NAT. So we are defining an access list based on which dynamic NAT or the network address translation would happen, and hence it is known as policy dynamic NAT or policy NAT. To begin with, NAT exempt used to have the highest priority. So the syntax for NAT exempt used to look somewhat like this: NAT ingress interface, which would be, let's suppose it's inside for us, and 0 access list and the name of the access list. Now if you look closely over here, 0 stands for NAT exempt. When you apply a NAT statement and you define the sequence number as 0, that means that it is meant for exemption purpose. Anything that you would be defining in the access list, for example, you define an access list, no name, extended permit IP 192.168.1.0, and the destination as 192.168.2.0. In that case, the source address would not be translated. It would remain as it is. So for example, an IP address 192.168.1.1 is coming from the inside, then it would be left as it is. It will not be NATed. There could be multiple NAT exempt statements on an ASA. So the order of operation inside the NAT exempt section would be sequential. The entire statements would be checked sequentially, and the first hit would be used. That is, the entire NAT statement would be checked in order sequentially until the first match is found. If we go to the next type of NAT statement, which is the static NAT and static PAT, or the which includes both regular and policy NAT, the statements or the syntax looks somewhat like this: static ingress interface, egress interface, mapped IP, along with real IP, and then we define the net mask. Net mask is a keyword over here. Please remember this is a keyword, and then we define the subnet mask. This is a regular static NAT. If you want to do a regular static part, then you define the syntax somewhat like this: static ingress comma egress interface, mapped IP, mapped port, real IP, real port. Then we define the net mask. Net mask is the keyword, and the subnet mask. The next section in the or the next type in the static section would be policy NAT, static policy NAT. So static policy NAT is defined somewhat like the static ingress comma egress, mapped IP, access list, and the name of the access list. Forgive me guys for this messy thing. For some reason this is not working very fine today. This covers two sections: NAT exempt and static NAT and static PAT. The next section that comes on the pre-8.3 firmware versions was policy dynamic NAT. So in order to apply a policy dynamic NAT, we used to use the syntax somewhat like this: NAT ingress interface, and then sequence number could be anything apart from 0. Let's suppose we are taking 1 over here, we are applying it on number 1. Then we define the access list along with name, and then the second statement in this part would come somewhat like this: global egress interface 1 and the mapped IP. This is known as the policy dynamic NAT. The last and the simplest one, the regular dynamic NAT, is the syntax is NAT ingress interface. For example, we are taking 10 for this, and then we define the source subnet ID and the subnet mask, subnet and ID and the subnet mask. Then again global egress interface 10 and the mapped IP or the mapped subnet, whatever you would like to define here. One thing that you guys need to note is that NAT exempt is sequentially checked. Static NAT and static PAT is also sequentially checked. The policy dynamic NAT is also sequentially checked, but the regular dynamic NAT is not sequentially checked. The best hit that it would take would be the exact match that it could find. For example, there are two NAT statements. One is 192.168.1.0. The entire subnet is defined in one particular NAT statement, and in the other one a single IP, for example 192.168.1.1 is defined. So whenever the traffic would come from 192.168.1.1, and let's suppose those NAT statements are defined for internet access through the ASA, then if the traffic is generated from 192.168.1.1, then it will take hit on the 192.168.1.1 NAT statement, not 192.168.1.0 statement. So the subnet statement will not take preference over here. Rather, the single IP statement would take preference over here. So that generally covers the NAT order of operations. I will share the link wherein you can see how exactly these NAT statements are applied. Pre-8.3 firmware versions are rarely seen in today's environment because Cisco has come up with a lot of newer versions. We have discussed this, I guess, previously as well. The latest one is 9.10 dot something. So in the next video, we would be discussing NAT order of operations in post 8.3 versions. So I hope you guys like this video. If you have liked this video, kindly go ahead and like, subscribe, and share as much as possible. And please keep on sharing your feedbacks with me. So until the next video, guys, you have a great time. Bye bye.